I'm John Hinkle, Senior Pastor of First Presbyterian Church, and this is your Saturday morning preview of your Sunday morning sermon, which I always or usually do on Friday mornings or Friday afternoons. So here you go. So this morning we find ourselves getting ready to go into the fifth and final Sunday of Lent. And if you've been with us all the four previous Sundays, you will know that we have been focusing our attention on what does it take for all of us to hear God's call in Jesus Christ to follow his Son into this world. Or simply put, what does it mean for us to follow Jesus? What does that look like? And a lot of our focus really has been on this notion that to follow Jesus really takes time and effort and energy. You just can't follow Jesus on a whim. It is something that's very intentional. It is that life-changing decision. Okay, God, I will go where Jesus sends me. I will do what Jesus asks of me. I will say what Jesus wants me to say. It's very intentional. It's very intentional. But if you're like me, as you live out this very intentional life of following Jesus in the world, you're fully aware that to follow Jesus, it comes at a cost. There's a cost involved. And that cost, a lot of times, can be great. You know, that to follow Jesus, you have to follow him even in the stress and strain of life itself. And we see that again in our text this morning, which comes from the Gospel of Matthew. That's kind of where we've been focusing our attention, the Gospel of Matthew. This is in the 8th chapter. And it's an interesting moment where there are these kind of two questions that come up, or really two requests about two people who want to follow Jesus, but they kind of put an asterisk by it, you know, a footnote. I'll follow you, but. So let me read this text. It's Matthew 8, starting in verse 18. When Jesus saw the crowd around him, he gave orders to cross to the other side of the lake. But before he could do that, a teacher of the law came to Jesus and said, "Teacher, I'll follow you wherever you go." And Jesus replied, "Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Another disciple said to Jesus, "Lord, I'll go where you want me to go, but first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus told him, "Follow me and let the dead bury the dead." Now it's interesting, in kind of looking at this text, both requests, we find a moment where the individual is saying, "Jesus, I'll follow you. But Jesus lays it out what that could cost us, right? You follow me. Okay, great. But there's always a price to pay. For the first, it's the teacher of the law. And he says, "I'll follow you, Jesus, wherever you go." He said, "That's great, but just understand that following me can lead to discomfort. That following me can lead to sacrifice. So you'll be called to sacrifice, right? In this case, you might not have a place to lay down for the night because you're following me." The second one is the disciple says, "Listen, Jesus, I'll follow you, but first I need to bury my father." Now I'm not going to get into, there's a really interesting, when I was breaking this down in the Greek, there's a really interesting thought process behind this, what's really being asked and what's really being said. But what Jesus makes very clear is that following me means there is no delay. You either follow me or you're not following me. You know? I loved Glenn Emery, our clerk of session, said something. You just can't sin a little bit. Right, this is in a discussion we were talking about what does it mean to sin, and Glenn says, "Well, you can't sin a little bit, right? You're either sinning or you're not sinning." Well, the same principle applies here. Either you're following Jesus or you're not. There's not a little bit of following. I'm sort of following. Well, I took one step to follow Jesus, but now I'm going to go this way. but I may go back to following Jesus in a few minutes. You're either doing it or you're not. And that's what Jesus is really kind of getting across to that second request. The gentleman said, I'll follow you, but first let me bury my father. You're either following me or you're not following me. Well, what's so interesting about all of this is that the minute these two requests are given, the disciples get into the boat and they cross over to the other side, where we're told that Jesus takes a nap. He decides to go to sleep. And while he's napping, a storm comes over the boat and the disciples are afraid. They think they're going to die, and they wake up Jesus, and Jesus says, "What are you afraid of?" Well, they're afraid they're going to die in the storm. But Jesus, he calms the wind and the rain, and the storm stops. See, one of the things that I've realized is that following Jesus doesn't prevent the storms of our lives. But following Jesus, in some ways, it may actually take us into the storm. But even in the storm, Jesus is with us. That's the faith part, right? Do we believe that Jesus is with us even in the storm? Yes. Yeah. Do we believe Jesus is with us even when he leads us in the storm? I hope so. I hope so. So here we are. We got one more mile to go. This journey is coming to an end. And soon we'll be in Jerusalem. And we'll be standing before the cross. If I don't see you in worship on Sunday, I hope you take the opportunity to worship with us on our YouTube channel. And I hope to see you soon. Take care. And know that I love you.